bizarre.
Hey guys, come here. Rob. Come here. There's lights in the sky.
I talked to Hector. He showed me exactly where it all went down. He was just putting his little girl to bed when he saw it out the window and instinctively grabbed his phone.
What I noticed about it was it had little flashing lights in it.
Many people are unaware that Pennsylvania has its own Roswell incident that is every bit, if not more, significant than Roswell. Last year we had 193 sightings in Pennsylvania alone. In this documentary, I'm going to cover all aspects of the Kecksburg incident. I'm going to let you decide what you think happened.
We're in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania on Sunday. I don't know what the date is. The 17th or something.
And I don't know what the hell this thing is. I live in Pennsylvania, near Scranton, and this thing for the past 3 nights has been hovering over my house.
First, let's start with the history. The incident occurred on December 9th, 1965 in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, United States. A fireball was reported by citizens of 6 U.S. states and Canada over Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Canada. Astronomers said it was likely a meteor burning up in the atmosphere and descending at a steep angle. Many of the townspeople remember the incident, as you can see in these news interviews.
It's the story without an ending.
The wife and I seen the streak in the sky and heard it on the radio.
Questions without answers.
Well, Kecksburg, of course, it's an historical case. It happened 48 years ago.
A gorgeous countryside interrupted.
The object fell down over this hillside to my right.
Was it something controlled?
Well, this was the front page of the morning edition of the Tribune Review.
Or was it out of this world?
We cannot eliminate the possibility that it could be extraterrestrial.
December 9th, 1965. Some say they saw an orange streak in the sky, a metallic object with strange markings. In hundreds of reports, eyewitnesses say this object landed in a wooded area of Kecksburg, but it's not known publicly if that object even exists, exactly where it is today.
I started when I was 10 years old in 1959.
UFO researcher Stan Gordon is hooked. In 54 years, he's interviewed hundreds of people.
So these people, most of them don't even know each other. But what they don't know is so many of these people gave me those little details of what they experienced that night in 1965. And those little details confirm other people's accounts.
Let's talk more about what officially took place, according to the Greensburg Tribune Review. The area where the object landed was immediately sealed off on the order of the U.S. Army and state police officials, reportedly in anticipation of a close inspection of whatever may have fallen. State police officials there ordered the area roped off to await the expected arrival of both U.S. Army engineers and possibly civilian scientists. When state troopers and Air Force personnel searched the woods, they reportedly found absolutely nothing. A subsequent edition in the Tribune Review bore the headline, "Searchers Fail to Find Object." Authorities discounted proposed explanations such as a plane crash, Ariane missile test, or satellite debris, and generally assumed it to be a meteor. A spokesman in the Defense Department in Washington said first reports indicated the reported fireball was a natural phenomenon. Today we take a trip to Kecksburg, Pennsylvania to get a first-hand experience of the actual site of the UFO and the replica of the described acorn-shaped craft left behind after the NBC television show Unsolved Mysteries built it for their reenactment. In 2005, Just before the 40th anniversary of the Kecksburg incident, NASA released a statement reporting that the experts had examined metallic fragments from the area and determined that they were from a Russian satellite that re-entered the atmosphere and broke up, but records of their findings were lost in the 1990s. Leslie Keene, described as an investigative reporter backed by the Sci-Fi Channel, reportedly sued NASA under the Freedom of Information Act for the lost NASA records. On October 26, 2007, NASA agreed to search for those records after being ordered by a court. During the hearing, Steve McConnell, NASA's public liaison officer, testified that 2 boxes of papers from the time of Kecksburg incident were missing. Loss of records is not a unique case for NASA. For example, the original tapes recorded during the televised Apollo 11 moon landing were misplaced or reused. In 2008, space writer James Auberg suggested that NASA was unlikely to possess any such documents since, in his view, it was highly likely that the supposed NASA team that investigated the site were in fact Air Force personnel who identified themselves as NASA personnel, something regularly done by the military personnel in civilian clothes during the 1960s. He further suggested that Keene's action was no more than a publicity stunt for the benefit of Keene's employers. According to John Ventry of MUFON and Shafton, native Owen Eckler, their recent investigations have led them to speculate the object that was reportedly landed in Kecksburg was a General Electric Mark II re-entry vehicle that had been launched by the Air Force as a spy satellite, but fell out of orbit. However, we need confirmation from NASA or the Air Force. There is some speculation that the re-entry of the Cosmos 96 Venera-type spacecraft was responsible for a fireball which was seen over southwestern Ontario, Canada, and at least 8 states from Michigan to New York at 4:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 9th of December 1965. Investigations of photographs and sightings of the fireball indicated its path through the atmosphere was probably too steep to be consistent with a spacecraft re-entering from Earth's orbit and was more likely a meteor in a prograde orbit from the vicinity of the asteroid belt and probably ended its flight over western Lake Erie. U.S. Air Force tracking data on Cosmos 96 also indicate the spacecraft orbit decayed earlier than 2143 UT on 9th of December. Other unconfirmed reports state that the fireball subsequently landed in Pennsylvania southeast of Pittsburgh near the town of Kecksburg at 4:46 p.m. Estimating the impact point of fireballs from eyewitness accounts is notoriously inaccurate. Uncertainties in the orbital information and re-entry coordinates at the time make it difficult to determine definitively if the fireball could not have been the Cosmos 96 spacecraft. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the strange occurrence that took place after the incident. A man by the name of John Murphy was visited by 2 men at his job where he worked as a news director. He was working on a documentary called Object in the Woods, reporting eyewitness testimony and evidence that he gathered himself. His wife and secretary both remember how ecstatic he was about the release of his new documentary. After being visited by the 2 men, fellow workers describe him as coming out of the room nervous and depressed looking. The next day, he changed his entire story, claiming that his eyewitnesses changed their minds about wanting their statements out there. After reporting the edited version on the radio, he refused to talk about the incident again, not even with his wife. He was struck by a car and killed years later. He never spoke about what the 2 men told him. The Kecksburg UFO incident goes way deeper than any other UFO case I've ever read about. Whether you believe in aliens or secret aircraft or not, anyone can admit that this story is strange and coincidental. So now you know about the Kecksburg UFO incident.